The bread was stale, almost as hard as stone. But Grace still split it in two and handed the bigger piece to her brother. "Eat," she said softly. Tommy took it without a word. They hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. The dry loaf scratched his throat, but he chewed slowly, trying to make it last. They were sitting on the floor of an empty, dusty container behind an abandoned warehouse. The place smelled of old oil and rats, but it was the only spot that had a roof and could hide them from the rain. Grace leaned back against the metal wall, trying to ignore the sound of her stomach. Her dress was torn at the shoulder, and her feet were swollen from walking for hours the night before. She didn't know how they got here. Well, she did. But she didn't want to think about it. Just 4 days ago they had a home. It wasn't perfect. A single room in the back of Mr. Andrews' compound. But it was theirs. Until their mum came home with a man neither of them had seen before. He wore a shiny chain and smelled like alcohol and petrol. He didn't say much that first night. But the second night, Grace caught him staring at her for too long. The third night, he knocked on their door while their mother was out. By the fourth morning, Grace packed their small school bags, grabbed the little money she'd been saving from doing errands, and pulled Tommy out of bed. "We're leaving," she had whispered. "Where are we going?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "Anywhere that's not here." Now, anywhere had led them to this metal box in the middle of nowhere. "I miss school," Tommy said suddenly. Grace didn't answer. She missed school too. She missed her locker, her old slippers, her best friend, Bella, the red roof of their church, the way their mum used to laugh before everything changed. "Do you think Mum is looking for us?" he asked. "No," Grace said without thinking. Then she paused. "I don't know." Tommy shifted closer to her and laid his head on her lap. "I'm scared," he murmured. Grace didn't reply. Her eyes were already full. She looked out through the small hole in the side of the container. The sky was starting to change. Evening again. And just as she was about to close her eyes for a quick rest, they both heard something. A sound. Footsteps. Getting closer. Grace's heart jumped. She quickly pulled Tommy up, her hand covering his mouth before he could speak. The footsteps were steady, slow, too confident. Not like someone passing by, more like someone searching. She didn't breathe. Tommy's small body trembled under her arm. The sound stopped right in front of the container. Silence. Then came the sharp clang of metal. Someone was trying to open the door. Grace grabbed the empty bread nylon and clutched Tommy's hand. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The door creaked open just enough for a face to peek in. A boy, not a man. A boy. He looked about 16 or 17, with twisted braids and a nose that had clearly been broken before. His eyes scanned the inside of the container, landing on Grace first, then Tommy. "I knew I saw small children enter here," he said. Grace didn't answer. Her lips were dry. She squared her shoulders even though her knees were shaking. The boy raised both hands. "I no come to harm you," he said. I stay round the back. Me and my guys. We day squat for warehouse." Still she said nothing. "I bring food," he added, lifting a white plastic bag. "You want chop?" Tommy moved first. "Grace," he whispered. "I'm hungry." She pulled him back. "What's in the bag?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. The boy tossed the bag slowly onto the floor near the door, then stepped back. "Just bread and beans, Gary, and 1 bottle of water. I swear." "Why?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "Why help us?" He scratched the back of his neck. "Because I know what it feels like." He turned to walk away, then paused. "Look, no pressure. If you no trust me, leave But if you need a place with more space, we get room." Then he disappeared. Grace waited in silence. 2 full minutes. Then she crawled to the bag and opened it. The smell of the beans made Tommy's eyes light up. She touched the bottle of water. It was cold. Somehow, she passed it to Tommy first. They ate like wild animals. That night, Grace didn't sleep. Not properly. She lay awake, wondering what kind of people the boys' guys were. Wondering if she should risk it. She couldn't afford another mistake. But in the morning, when she stepped outside, something changed. Two other girls about her age were sitting on blocks by the warehouse wall, brushing their teeth with chewing sticks and laughing. One of them saw her and waved. New girl, ABI? You're safe, hero. Promise. For the first time in 4 days, Grace let herself breathe. But just as her shoulders began to relax, she heard a voice behind her. A familiar voice. Grace! Tommy! She froze. She turned around. And what she saw made her knees buckle. Her mother was standing there, barefoot, hair scattered, eyes wild. Grace's stomach turned. Mom! Tommy's voice cracked, soft and unsure. The woman took 2 shaky steps forward, lips trembling like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Her eyes darted from Grace to Tommy and back again, then dropped to the empty nylon bag still clutched in Grace's hand. You ran away, she finally whispered. You just left. Grace stepped in front of Tommy instinctively. You told me to. Her voice was steady now. You let that man knock on my door. You didn't stop him. Their mother flinched like the words slapped her. I didn't know, she said. Grace's eyes hardened. You knew. She could feel other people watching now. Some boys lounging by the warehouse wall had sat up. One of the girls with the chewing stick had stopped mid-brush, frozen. Their mother moved closer. Grace, listen. I sent him away. I didn't sleep the night you left. I reported him. I looked for you. No, you didn't, Grace said coldly. You looked for your own guilt, not us. Tommy peeked from behind her. Mom, are you okay? Their mother crouched down, finally breaking. Tears poured down her face. I'm not okay. I lost myself. I let the wrong man into our house. I thought he would help. I was scared. And I failed you. Both of you. Grace's face stayed hard, but her chest was softening. I found this place. Their mum went on, choking on her words. I heard kids were staying here. I prayed I would find you here. Tommy reached forward and touched her hand. Grace didn't stop him. For a long moment, nobody said anything. Then the boy with the twisted braids called out from behind. She day talk true. She come yesterday. She begged the security guy make help check container. We no one let her in. Their mum nodded. I just wanted to see you. To know you're alive. The silence was thick. Grace opened her mouth to speak. But before she could say anything, a loud horn sounded from the front of the warehouse. A van had pulled in, bold red letters on the side. Hope Nation Youth Showcase. Lagos finalists bus departure point. One of the girls stood up fast. Is that today? We go late-o. Grace blinked, confused. Tommy pointed. That's the show I told you about. Remember? The one with singing, drama, talent. I saw it on the poster. The girl who waved earlier ran over to them. Una still day here? You go follow us now. Remember the boy way bring food? Na him register Una name yesterday. He say you sabi sing. That's your ticket. Grace looked from the van to Tommy, then to her mother still crouched in the dirt. Grace didn't move. Her fingers tightened around Tommy's hand. Her mother stood up slowly, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Her eyes looked tired, tired in a way that no sleep could fix. You should go, she said softly, voice shaking. You deserve something good, better than what I gave you. Grace searched her face. Not for lies, she'd heard enough of those. She was looking for something real. A crack, a sign, a reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, their mother meant it. Tommy tugged her hand. Grace, let's try. Are you going back with him? She asked their mum, her voice quiet, careful. No, she said firmly. I sent him away. He won't come near us again. I promise. Grace looked down at the dusty floor. Then at the van, the girl now climbing into the back, still waving at them to come. We have no clothes, she said. The girl laughed from the bus. Nobody care about clothes. Just come and perform. Tommy was already stepping forward. Grace hesitated for half a second, then let herself follow. As they climbed into the van, the boy with twisted braids appeared again. a cheeky grin on his face. Told you I got you. Grace sat beside Tommy, clutching her flute case, the only thing she carried when they left home that night. Her mother stood outside, one hand over her chest, watching them with wide eyes. Just as the bus door was about to shut, Grace leaned forward. Mom! The woman stepped closer. I'm still angry, Grace said. But we're not lost. Their mother covered her mouth, tears spilling again. Then the door closed, and the bus pulled away. As the city passed in a blur through the dusty window, Grace stared out quietly, her hand still wrapped around her brother's. In the seat behind them, a girl was practicing a spoken word piece. Up front, someone was beatboxing softly. The boy with the braids tapped a rhythm on the seat with his fingers, like he was drumming out a future only he could hear. Grace finally leaned her head against the window and whispered, mostly to herself, "This better not be a dream." But in her heart, for the first time in weeks, it didn't feel like one. The bus bounced over a pothole, jerking everyone slightly. Tommy giggled beside her, holding onto the edge of his seat. Grace managed a small smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes yet, but it was something. They rode through the heart of Lagos, passing smoky mama put stalls, Okadas weaving like bees through traffic, and boys hawking pure water in between moving cars. The city looked louder now, brighter, like something big was about to happen. All right, guys. The woman at the front of the bus clapped her hands. Standing up, she had thick glasses, a scarf tied stylishly on her head, and a clipboard in hand. My name is Miss Tara. I'm your coordinator for the Youth Showcase final round. If you made it on this bus, that means you've been shortlisted. And let me say, we saw some serious talent from you people. The whole bus clapped. A few whistled. Grace just blinked. Shortlisted? She hadn't even auditioned. Miss Tara looked down at her list. We have singers, dancers, poets, drummers, painters, even a girl that does magic. More cheers. Then Miss Tara's eyes scanned the bus. We also have a late entry, submitted by one of our youngest registered talents. Grace and Tommy, are you two here? Grace's heart stopped. Tommy raised his hand proudly. Yes, Ma. A few heads turned. Some smiled. A boy in the back said, Nah, those ones from warehouse now. The girl fit blow flute like say she be spirit. Miss Tara grinned. Wonderful. Can't wait to see what you'll bring. Grace sank a little in her seat. Tommy, she whispered, what did you do? He looked up at her with that small, mischievous smile she hadn't seen since before their dad died. I recorded you once, when you were playing that day behind the church. I kept it on your old phone before it spoiled. She stared at him. I showed it to that boy with braids. He said it was enough. Grace couldn't speak. Outside the window, the tall gates of a massive event center came into view. A long banner stretched across the top. Hope Nation Youth Showcase, National Finals. The bus drove in. Inside the gates, everything was different. Tents lined the field. Cameramen moved around. A big stage stood at the center with lights being tested. Kids from different states were everywhere, rehearsing, stretching, singing, waiting. As they stepped down from the bus, Grace could barely breathe. This was not just a stage. This was a world she had never imagined she'd stand inside. Miss Tara pointed them to a tent with their names already tagged on a small table. Tommy rushed ahead. Grace followed slowly, trying not to panic. But her fingers were trembling. She hadn't prepared. She hadn't practiced. She hadn't even played her flute properly in days. How could she perform? Then she heard it. A soft humming sound. Not loud. Not forced. Just natural. She turned. A girl in one of the side tents was singing. Her voice was smooth like warm milk, with a strength underneath that made you stop whatever you were doing. Grace stood frozen, watching her. That's when it hit her. What am I doing here? I can't compete with this. Grace slowly backed away from the tent entrance, her chest tightening. She couldn't even hear properly over the sudden pounding in her ears. She clutched the flute case tighter against her stomach like it could hide the fear rising in her throat. All around her, people were warming up, stretching their legs, testing microphones, tuning guitars, adjusting wigs, humming scales. Everyone looked like they knew what they were doing, like they belonged. She didn't. She turned around quietly and began walking. Tommy didn't see her. He was inside the tent, already opening the Gary and milk the volunteers had packed into their welcome kit like it was Christmas. Grace kept walking past the generator room, past the sound guys, past the long row of plastic chairs stacked against the wall. Her head down, her feet moving fast. She didn't know where she was going. She just needed to get away. She reached the back of the event center where the air smelled like diesel and dust. It was quiet there. No music, no eyes, no pressure, just silence. She sat on the ground, pulled her knees to her chest, and rested her head on them. Maybe she should just wait there until the show was over. Tommy could perform his own thing. He was brave enough. Maybe someone would clap. Maybe they'd both get free lunch and go home. Or wherever home was now. Grace closed her eyes. And then, a soft beat started. Not loud, but clear. Tap, 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 tap. She looked up. The boy with the twisted braids stood a few feet away, tapping a rhythm against the back of a metal tank with a stick. His eyes were calm. He didn't speak, just kept drumming. Grace stared at him. He raised his brows. You done running? She didn't answer. He stopped tapping. Listen, he said, voice quiet. Everybody here day fear. All of them. Even that girl way sing like church angel. She day panic too. You know why she sound good? Because she sing anyway. Grace looked away. I didn't prepare, she muttered. I don't even know what to play. He smiled. Play anything. She shook her head. I'm not like them. True, he said. You not like them. You different. He leaned against the wall. When I saw that video, the one your brother showed me, I watched it like 5 times. You were just sitting in the corner behind the church with dust on your feet and no shoes. But the sound. He paused, shaking his head slowly. It was like you weren't even in this country. It was like you were somewhere else. Free. Grace swallowed hard. Something in her eyes softened. The fear didn't leave, but it shifted. She reached into the case and pulled out the flute. Her fingers ran along the smooth wood, finding their old places. The boy nodded once, then walked away without saying another word. Grace stayed there a moment longer. Then, without thinking too hard, she raised the flute to her lips. She closed her eyes, and she played. 1 note, 2, then 10. The sound floated across the back walls, high and clear, like wind moving through glass. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. When she opened her eyes again, Tommy was standing there. He didn't say anything. He just smiled. Then he held out her name tag already clipped and ready. Grace stood still, flute in hand, Tommy's smile lighting up something deep in her chest. She took the name tag and clipped it to her dress. Her hands weren't shaking anymore, not because she wasn't scared, but because she was ready to do it anyway. Together, they walked back to the main tent. Everything felt louder now, brighter, but different from before. The fear wasn't in control anymore. The fear was just sitting beside her, like an old friend who finally agreed not to shout. Backstage, Miss Tara saw them and gave a quick thumbs up. You're on in 5. Tommy squeezed her hand. Let's show them. She smiled, a full one this time. Let's. The stage lights hit her face as they stepped out, the crowd murmuring softly, waiting. A judge leaned forward, curious. Grace raised the flute. Tommy stood beside her with a small drum one of the volunteers had given him. The music began. First a soft hum from Tommy's drum, then Grace's flute, high, clear, rising like morning light. The audience leaned in. Then it changed, the melody bent into something joyful, bold, alive. People clapped before it even ended. When the final note dropped, the entire hall erupted. Cheers, whistles. Even one of the judges stood to clap. Grace lowered the flute slowly. Her eyes were wide, shining with something she hadn't felt in years, pride. Tommy turned to her, and they hugged tightly. That night, they didn't just get applause. They won. They were crowned national winners of the Hope Nation Youth Showcase. Cameras flashed. Reporters asked questions. A scholarship offer was made. Sponsorship letters were handed to Miss Tara for them. But what stayed with Grace the most wasn't the trophy or the stage. It was the moment they walked out of the event center and saw their mother standing by the gate, clean, sober, waiting, holding a flask of hot tea and a pair of clean shoes. She didn't speak. She just looked at them with tears in her eyes. This time, Grace didn't walk away. She stepped forward, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself be held. Moral lessons. Your talent can take you places, even when your circumstances try to hold you back. Fear is real, but courage is moving forward despite it. Sometimes, forgiveness opens the door to healing, not just for others but for yourself. You never know who's watching. One small video, one small act of kindness can change everything. Never underestimate the strength of a child who decides to survive and then chooses to shine. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to comment where you're watching from so we can give you a shout out in our next post. Bye for now.